Exclusive contracted novel by Feilu Novel Network. Siheyuan, don't get married. Zhang Hao traveled through a courtyard house and initially went on a blind date with Qin Huairu. However, Qin Huairu looked down on Zhang Hao and turned around to repent and marry Jia Dongxu. The mother and son of Jia and Zhang demanded compensation from Zhang Hao on the grounds of his physical altercation with Qin Huairu during their blind date, and the birds in the courtyard also followed suit. A few years later, with the opening of the system, Zhang Hao's days became more and more prosperous, while Qin Huairu's days, who had regretted marriage, became more and more chaotic. Feilu Novel Network reminds you that this novel and its characters are purely fictional. If there are any similarities, they are purely coincidental and should not be imitated. Chapter 1. System Awakening. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the cold winter of 1962, the third rolling mill of Hongqing in the imperial capital sounded the bell for work. The workers who heard the bell rushed towards the gate, and Zhang Hao was one of them. In fact, Zhang Hao had a secret that he was a traveler, traveling from the abundant resources of later generations to this passionate era. However, in this era of material scarcity, the country established a planned economy, so all materials had to be purchased with tickets. When Zhang Hao physically traveled, he was bound to a check.In system, but what was quite tricky was that he was given the identity of a martyr's orphan and a 50-square-meter house in the courtyard before falling into a deep sleep. When Zhang Hao came to the courtyard, he knew that he was in a world full of emotions and courtyards, because Yan Bugue, the third master of the golden abacus, lives in the front courtyard, and Lu Haizhong, the second master of filial piety and father, lives in the middle courtyard. In the backyard, there lived an old man named Junzi sword.E Zhonghai Buchuan, as well as the mother and son of Jia Dongxu, who had forcibly taken power from the Jia Zhang family. There are also the deaf old lady, the villain Su-Da, the vampire Qin Huairu, and the licking dog Haizhong in the courtyard. When Zhang Hao walked to the entrance of the courtyard, he saw a woman wearing blue work clothes, with a plump figure and peach blossom-like eyes. This woman was Qin Huairu. When it comes to Qin Huairu, it must be said that when the protagonist was just getting dressed, the matchmaker brought Qin Huairu to the protagonist's door to propose a marriage. When Zhang Hao was watching TV, he thought that Qin Huairu could do anything for the sake of her child. After marriage, such a woman should be quite family-oriented. When I figured it out and decided to marry Qin Huairu, I had almost everything I needed to prepare, and it was just a matter of getting married and obtaining a certificate. At this moment, Jia Dongxu fell in love with Qin Huairu, and Jia Zhang looked at Zhang Hao, who was alone and without any reason, deliberately instigating the birds in the courtyard to tarnish Zhang Hao's reputation. Qin Huairu saw that Zhang Hao was a new apprentice who had just entered the factory and there were no adults at home, while Jia Dongxu from the Jia family was a first-level fitter. He studied under Zhonghai, who was then a 6th-level fitter, and decisively abandoned Zhang Hao and threw himself into Jia Dongxu's embrace. The essence of Qin Huairu's worship of gold in green tea is evident in this matter. Zhang Hao was quite open-minded at the time. The relationship between men and women was always one of our wishes. If you didn't want to leave, just leave. The big deal in the future was to die old and not interact with each other, but since Qin Huairu, the woman, entered the Jia family, the Jia Zhang family claimed that Zhang Hao had tampered with her daughter-in-law during a blind date and demanded a compensation of 200 yuan. And the beasts in the courtyard also felt it was reasonable, so under the leadership of Zhonghai, they forced Zhang Hao to bow his head. Zhang Hao is a top student in science in the 21st century. He is a legitimate straight man who does not understand compromise, let alone he has not tampered with Qin Huairu. Unable to bear this injustice, Zhang Hao scolded all the animals on the spot in silence, and then went to the police to report that someone was extorting him. It was useless for the birds to stop them. The police wanted to take Jia and Zhang away at that time, but the oldest beast in the courtyard, the deaf old lady, relied on her identity as a 5 guarantees household to protect her. But Zhang Hao's identity is not a vegetarian either, and he refused to agree to a settlement. After the police took him away, they made Jia Zhang cry for several months. After Jia Zhang came out, he joined forces with everyone to tarnish Zhang Hao's reputation and drive him out of the courtyard. At that time, Zhonghai joined forces with many birds to write a letter to the street office. The director of the street office accepted Zhonghai's benefits and agreed. However, Zhang Hao's entire family were martyrs, and his father was also a guard for a senior leader. At the end of the anti-Japanese war, he protected that person and made a heroic sacrifice. This document was accidentally seen by that person, so he directly reprimanded, "The country is not a place for you people to create small groups to exclude others, and the houses allocated by the country are not something that your small street office can recycle." At that time, he masturbated the director of the street office. The conspiracy of the birds failed like this, but it also tarnished Zhang Hao's reputation, making him 28 years old and still alone. Qin Huairu looked at Zhang Hao with red eyes and said, "Haozi, how have you been these years? This acting skills come naturally, even if we don't move an Oscar for her, we'll be sorry for her." Zhang Hao glanced at Qin Huairu and ignored her, walking back directly. Qin Huairu felt a deep hatred when she saw Zhang Hao ignoring her. This Zhang Hao has no nostalgia for his past relationship. Now that the Jia family is like this, he still refuses to forgive. In fact, Qin Huairu regretted it as soon as she entered the Jia family, because as soon as she got married, the faces of the Jia Zhang family and her son were exposed, and they were not as kind as when she was still married. On the other hand, Zhang Hao didn't know what was going on, and his mind suddenly came to his senses. He used scrap iron and other materials to make 2 ground cow carts. Suddenly, the efficiency of the factory improved, and for some unknown reason, he was promoted from a level 6 worker to the only engineer in the steel rolling mill. His current salary is even half higher than that of Zhonghai. What they didn't know was that Zhang Hao was a top science student before his time traveling. Zhang Hao spent a long time organizing and providing the urgently needed data on mushroom bombs to the country, and he didn't want to be disturbed, so there was also a letter submitted along with the data from mushroom bomb. The content of the letter is that Zhang Hao does not want to disrupt his existing life. The reason why it took several years to organize was because Zhang Hao had to improve his worker level again. He was extremely busy all day and only had a little time at night to organize the data. Zhang Hao ignored Qin Huairu and the birds in the courtyard, and went straight home. Zhang Hao returned home and heard a voice in his mind. "Ding, the system energy is already full, and it is now starting. The host did not sign in today. May I ask if the host has signed in?" Upon hearing this, Zhang Hao felt excited and said, "System, you have finally arrived. I have had such a difficult time these years, hurry up and sign in." The mechanical sound of the system activated in Zhang Hao's mind. Congratulations to the host for successfully signing in, with divine level medical skills and a medical practice set, intermediate Art D ability, 1 toolbox, 20 pounds of pork, 2 bicycle tickets. Zhang Hao was instantly overjoyed. His divine level medical skills could heal anyone who was not a dead person, bouncing back and forth. Intermediate research and development technology, on the other hand, is capable of designing and researching various items, such as recorders, televisions, and so on, which is simply an enlarged version of Edison. Zhang Hao quickly integrated these 2 skills. After a while, Zhang Hao's mind gained a lot of knowledge, such as acupoints, nerves, pharmacology, chemical reactions, etc. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 2. Birds and Good People. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After Zhang Hao became familiar with the knowledge in his mind for a while, he took out a pound of pork and began to cook. Zhang Hao planned to get a braised pork belly. Zhang Hao has made braised pork belly fragrant in the courtyard, especially in the past 3 years of famine. Although there is no such shortage of food, but most people couldn't eat enough, let alone meat. Zhang Hao's manipulation made the whole courtyard drool uncontrollably. Jia's family, the white and fat Jia Zhang's face was sharp and unkind, and his three-cornered eyes glared. Damn Zhang Hao, my family is so pathetic. I don't know how to help my family even if I eat braised pork belly in brown sauce. Jia Zhang is not a good person as long as anyone does not help her family. The wealthy Jia Dongxu also perfectly inherited the genes of the Jia and Zhang families, with a sharp and sarcastic expression on his face. That's right, isn't it that labor and capital have fought against him before? It's not pitiful enough for labor and capital to be like this. Before the birth of Huaihua, Jia Dongxu was hit in the spine by a steel beam due to illegal operations. In the original plot, he died. It has become a living presence in people's mouths, possibly because Zhang Hao traveled through time. Jia Dongxu did not die but was paralyzed from the waist down, and because Jia Dongxu also harmed the only good family in the front yard, Li Jianshe's family. When excluding Zhang Hao in the courtyard, Li Jianshe and his family were the only ones who helped Zhang Hao speak. When Jia Dongxu violated the rules, Li Jianshe was also a level 4 fitter at the age of 35, and the machine is very close to Jia Dongxu's machine. Due to Jia Dongxu's violation of regulations, Li Jianshe was also hit in the lumbar spine, and like Jia Dongxu, her lower body was paralyzed. Zhonghai's family, Zhonghai, and an elderly woman smelled the fragrance while eating. The elderly woman spoke up and said, Zhang Hao, this child, because of past events, except for Li Jianshe's family, he doesn't have any contact with anyone. Hey! Zhonghai's face was full of dissatisfaction. I am an old man in the yard. Zhang Hao refuses to discipline and obey my arrangements. Zhang Hao is a dangerous person in our yard. It's normal for people like Zhonghai who have a strong desire for control to dislike people like Zhang Hao who don't listen to him. Lu Haizhong's family sits on the Kong table with several steamed buns, pickled vegetables, and a plate of scrambled eggs. Lu Haizhong, smelling the smell of braised meat, stopped eating scrambled eggs. Zhang Hao, I know I'm the second uncle in the yard, and I don't know how to be filial to me. Second aunt. Yes, Zhang Hao has something in life that no one teaches him. Lu Guangfu and Lu Guangtian said, yes, my dad is right. If there is a chance in the future, I will teach him a good lesson. Licking the dog, silly Zhu took a sip of wine and pinched a peanut. Qin Jie used to be married to him before. Qin Jie's family is like this now, and I don't know if we can give him a helping hand. Zhang Hao is unaware of the various forms of birds in the courtyard, and even if he does, it doesn't matter. Anyway, he doesn't interact with the birds. Zhang Hao made braised pork belly, put it in a bowl, and walked to the backyard. When the birds were crowding out Zhang Hao, Li Jianshe and his wife came out to speak for Zhang Hao. At the beginning of the 3-year disaster, Zhang Hao was forced to be extremely happy, and it was Li Jianshe and his wife who helped him out. Help is mutual, and now that something like this happens in Li Jianshe's family, Zhang Hao will not stand idly by. Zhang Hao walked to Li Jianshe's doorstep and saw a skinny little girl sitting at his own doorstep, looking enviously at the children. Outside the courtyard the little girl saw Zhang Hao walking and approached with great joy, saying, Uncle Hao, you're here. Touching the little girl's hair, Zhang Hao smiled and said, yes, I'm here, Xiananan. Are your parents at home? The little girl's name is Li Nan. She is 2 years younger than Bang Ji and 6 years old this year. When she was supposed to go to school at this age, since Li Nan's father Li Jianshe had an accident and her mother went to the factory to take care of her, such a little girl has to shoulder the responsibility of taking care of Li Jianshe. Liang Hong became an apprentice just like Qin Huairu, but Li Jianshe's wife doesn't want to hang out with the men in the factory like Qin Huairu. So the family has been living a relatively tight life since Li Jianshe had an accident. However, Li Jianshe's wife, Liang Hong, made progress and became a first-class fitter in the factory in less than half a year, while Qin Huairu is still an apprentice to this day. Li Nan sweetly replied, Uncle Hao, Mom and Dad are talking about things at home. Upon hearing this, Zhang Hao took out the meat in his hand and said, Nan, look what Uncle has brought you. It's meat, Nan Nan exclaimed as she smelled the aroma entering her nose. Zhang Hao. Uncle brought you meat, let's go home. After Zhang Hao finished speaking, he held Li Nan's hand and knocked on Li Nan's door. After Zhang Hao knocked on the door, a gentle voice came from inside. Who is it? Zhang Hao replied, my sister-in-law is me. I'm here to find my brother Li and have dinner. The person who opened the door was a woman in her early 30s, dressed in blue work clothes with a vegetable-like expression on her face. She was not particularly beautiful, nor ugly, but rather had a slightly above-average appearance. The woman's name is Liang Hong and she is the wife of Li Jianshe. After opening the door, Liang Hong wiped her eyes and smiled, it's Xiao Hao here. Your brother Li is in the inner room. Zhang Hao looked at Liang Hong's movements and asked, does Li Gu still want you to give up on him? Liang Hong nodded without speaking. Zhang Hao handed the bowl to Liang Hong and walked into the room. After entering the room, Zhang Hao looked at Li Jianshe lying in bed with her eyes closed and said, Brother Li, I'm coming to see you. Li Jianshe opened her eyes and looked at Zhang Hao with a smile, saying, Haozi is here. Zhang Hao nodded, well, I got some braised pork belly and came here to satisfy Nan Nan's hunger. Li Jianshe was moved and cried upon hearing these words. Haozi, your brother has not been in vain. Since I was injured, all my relatives and friends have stopped contacting me, and you are the only one who still helps my family. Zhang Hao waved his hand and said, what are you talking about, brother Li? In the first year of the disaster, it wasn't for your family taking care of me, and I starved to death. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 3. Divine level medical skills demonstrate power in rescuing good people. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Although Li Jianshe had helped with the steamed bun, Zhang Hao really starved to death without it. Li Jianshe smiled bitterly at the words and said, I know Haozi, you are a man who values love and righteousness. Can I ask you something? Zhang Hao. What can you say? Li Jianshe said, can you get me some rat medicine? Let me go, and I can't burden your sister-in-law anymore. If he and his wife can live well, I will be satisfied. Zhang Hao was about to speak when Liang Hong directly answered, Haozi, don't listen to your brother. After finishing, he said to Li Jianshe, Jianshe, I don't think it's hard. Can you not take it too hard? Nan Nan can't live without her father. Zhang Hao also said, yes, brother Li, you too closed your eyes and left behind your sister-in-law and Nan Nan in this world. Can you really feel at ease? Li Jianshe burst into tears of pain upon hearing these words and said, Haozi, I know it's not good, but look at me. It's dragging down their mother and daughter, every time it comes to expenses, your sister-in-law takes me to the hospital for medical treatment. You see, Nan Nan has reached the age when she should go to school, but because of me, I have to carry feces and urine all day. I apologize to Nan Nan and your sister-in-law. Liang Hong said, we don't blame you for our construction. You should take a closer look. Zhang Hao smiled and said, Brother Li, I said I have a way to cure you. Do you dare to spell it out? Li Jianshe and Liang Hong both looked at Zhang Hao in surprise upon hearing this. Li Jianshe said, Haozi, what are you saying? You know medical skills. Zhang Hao nodded and said, I didn't fully integrate before and didn't dare to tell you. Now that I have fully integrated, I don't think it's a big problem to treat you. It depends on whether you dare to give it a try. Li Jianshe was pleasantly surprised and said, there's nothing I dare not try. I'm not even afraid of death. Zhang Hao said, well, sister-in-law, go and make some white flour mantou. Nan Nan needs some nutrition. Look at the 3 Jias, which one is not white and fat, and you can't lose Nan Nan in the future. Cheng, I'll go right away, Liang Hong said and led Nan Nan away. Liang Hong speculated that Zhang Hao deliberately said this to give Li Jianshi hope. Nan Nan looked at the braised pork belly on the table before leaving and swallowed it. It was really cute. He kept muttering, "Mom, give the meat to Dad. Dad can eat more meat to get better quickly." In an instant, the three adults were almost moved and cried by the sensible appearance of the little girl. After Liang Hong and Nan Nan left, Zhang Hao said to Li Jianshi, "Brotherly, I'll help you turn over and correct the deformed spine for you first. The process may be a bit painful." Upon hearing this, Li Jianshi nodded. Anyway, he was not afraid of anything. Now, as long as he could stand up, he was not afraid of death. Zhang Hao first pressed on Li Jianshe's spine and repositioned the deformed spine, which was a painful process. Li Jianshi was sweating profusely in pain. The restoration process lasted for 20 minutes, and then took silver needles to do acupuncture and moxibustion for Li Jianshi to smooth blood vessels and reconnect nerves. The entire treatment process lasted for almost an hour. Middle Liang Hong came in and took braised pork belly to heat it up. Zhang Hao wiped his sweat and turned over Li Jianshi, then said, "Brotherly, please try to control your lower body now." During the treatment, Li Jianshi felt pain in both legs, which was very painful. However, Li Jianshi was very happy because in the past, his lower body could not feel any sensation. Now hearing what Zhang Hao said, Li Jianshi quickly gave it a try and saw that her legs trembled slightly. Li Jianshi was so excited that she burst into tears of joy and said, "Haozi, thank you, brother. Your legs can move now." Zhang Hao said, "Brotherly, you still need to rest in bed for a while. I will treat you in a week. Later, I will get you some medicine that can promote muscle growth and bone regeneration, so that you can replenish the bones. It will take about a month, and I estimate that you will be able to walk on the ground." Li Jianshi said happily, I understand." Zhang Hao thought of something and said, "Brotherly, you still need to occasionally move your legs because you have been lying in bed for too long and your leg muscles have shrunk. You need to exercise well." Li Jianshi fulfilled Zhang Hao's instructions one by one. The two are chatting when Liang Hong and Li Nan come in. Li Nan, the little girl, ran over happily. "Dad, Mom steamed white flour mantou and warmed Uncle Hao's braised pork belly. Get up and eat." Li Jianshi looked at Li Nan with a gentle gaze and said, "Girl, you're really good. Dad won't eat anymore, so I'll make up for you and Mom." Li Nan glanced at her small mouth and said angrily, "Well, if Dad doesn't eat it, I won't either." Zhang Hao smiled and said, "Oh, brotherly, there's plenty of food tonight, enough for the four of us to eat." Li Jianshi smiled and said to himself, "Haozi, this friend is not in vain." Liang Hong came in and filled Li Jianshi with a small bowl of braised pork belly and 3 mantou. Here, the joy is harmonious and harmonious. The Jia family is making a fuss about wanting to eat meat, and the food that silly Zhu brought from the cafeteria today has no oil or water in it. Qin Huairu can't calm it down no matter what. And Jia Dongxu also cursed and said, "Damn silly pillar, I didn't know how to bring some meat and vegetables with me today. I don't lack this bite, but my good grandson is still growing." In her understanding, Jia Zhang, an old lady, it is appropriate for everyone to help her family. Those who do not help her Jia family are not good things, and those who do not are also not good things. After scolding stupid Zhu, he began to scold Zhang Hao again. "Damn Zhang Hao, a little brute, I didn't know how to bring braised pork belly to my grandson." Qin Huairu was speechless in her heart and said, "I offended Zhang Hao back then, but now I have to ask someone to come and help me. Oh. I have met some top-notch mother-in-law." Qin Huairu's heart roast about the Jia Zhang family. Qin Huairu also secretly hated Zhang Hao. After so many years, Zhang Hao didn't know to give me a hand. He didn't care about his original feelings. But Qin Huairu didn't even think about it. It wasn't because she regretted her marriage and talked nonsense. Can Zhang Hao have lived such a difficult time during that time? This is such shameless thinking. Silly Zhu's house, silly Zhu lying in bed listening to the movements of Qin Huairu's family, thinking of Qin Huairu's plump figure in my mind, I couldn't help but drool, but as soon as Qin Huairu thought of the regretful look in Zhang Hao's eyes, silly Zhu wished he had killed him. Unfortunately, Zhang Hao is not suit.A. The silly pillar was once repaired by Zhang Hao because Qin Huairu had trouble with him. Finally, under the instigation of Qin Huairu, silly Zhu and Jia Dongxu fought together and almost never fought. Chapter 4. Did Zhang Hao's tools damage the factory machinery? You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Zhang Hao finished his meal at Li Jianshe's house, then went back to his own home to soak his feet and then went to sleep. In this year, those who have a wife can play the game of creating a villain, while those who are alone can only sleep and read at home alone. Silent all night, the next morning Zhang Hao got up and folded the blanket, then tidied up and washed up. After finishing, Zhang Hao returned to his room and began reciting to the system, System check.in. System. Congratulations to the host for successfully signing in. You have received 70 pounds of beef, 400 pounds of special flour, 300 pounds of high-quality rice, 30 pounds of white rabbit milk sugar, and a bottle of genetic medicine. Zhang Hao looked at everything in the system space and was overjoyed. It is said that food is the top priority for the people, but unfortunately, in this era, even those who supply food in the city cannot have enough to eat 3 meals per person. Having signed in with so many grains is enough to eat for a while, not to mention the big white rabbit milk candy, which is a rare and sought-after item. Then Zhang Hao turned his gaze to the genetic drug again. There is a systematic explanation on gene therapy, which means enhancing physical fitness and improving lifespan. Zhang Hao took out the gene therapy. Without hesitation, Zhang Hao poured the gene potion into his mouth. After a while, a warm current emerged in Zhang Hao's body, transforming various parts of his body. With the passage of time, Zhang Hao's body gradually underwent transformation and he felt the power inside his body. Zhang Hao felt that he could hit 10 silly pillars now. After familiarizing himself with the power, Zhang Hao muttered to himself, it's time to go to work. Red Star Steel Rolling Plant. After Zhang Hao arrived, he was reading the newspaper in his office. The engineers in the factory were very busy when they were free, and they might be very busy when they were busy. Just as Zhang Hao was watching various major events happening in China, a man in his 50s with a slightly anxious expression rushed over. Zhang Hao saw the visitor smile and said, "What happened to the factory director? He came in such a hurry." Upon hearing this, Director Yang anxiously said, "Zhang is like this. The lathe used by Liang Hong in our factory's workshop has a problem. As you know, the country now has a weak industrial foundation, and any lathe is indispensable. Take a look. The reason why the factory director is so polite to Zhang Hao is because Zhang Hao has a deep background. Initially, a red urgent document promoted Zhang Hao to engineer, and this document, as the factory director, is not yet qualified to view. It is said to have been directly issued by the highest level." Upon hearing this, Zhang Hao stood up and said, "Director Cheng, let's go over and take a look together." A group of people, including Qin Huairu, surrounded Liang Hong in the middle of Zhonghai's bangs in a workshop. Zhonghai spoke up and said, "Xiao Yang, you've been learning to be a fitter for so long. Why are you still so careless? Do you know what this machine means to the factory?" Liang Hong retorted, "Grandpa, I really didn't make this machine. It turned out like this when I came to process the first part." Lu Haizhong took the conversation and said, "When Liang Hongping asked you to hone your skills, you didn't listen. Unfortunately, following Zhang Hao didn't teach you well, and you took some crooked and evil paths. Take a look, you broke all the machines in the factory." Liang Hong was so wrong that she was about to cry. She was so wrong that a woman pulled this family, having to work tirelessly for another day, and now being wronged again. Liang Hong's tears are swirling in her eyes. Qin Huairu looked very happy. Zhang Hao usually helped Li Jianshe's family so much, but he didn't help Jia's family. which made Qin Huairu very unhappy. She is very happy to see Liang Hong like this now. As soon as Lu Haizhong finished speaking, Zhang Hao's voice rang out. Second uncle, come and tell me, how can I teach Mrs. Liang to walk the crooked path? Everyone turned around and saw Zhang Hao and Director Yang slowly walking over from the workshop door. Zhang Hao smiled, but Director Yang's face was black. Actually, this kind of thing is usually handled directly by the workshop director looking for Zhang Hao, but today's incident was witnessed by everyone in the courtyard. Watching Zhang Hao and Li Jianshe's family get closer, they deliberately wanted to bring Director Yang over and make Zhang Hao lose face. Lu Haizhong immediately nodded and bowed when he saw Director Yang, saying, Director Yang, look at Liang Hong listening to Zhang Hao every day. The knives used in the machine tool are not up to standard, and he has gone through evil ways and damaged the machine tool. Director Yang looked awkwardly at Zhang Hao upon hearing this and said, Zhang, look at what's going on. Zhang Hao took a playful look at the bangs and said, it's like Director Yang. I observed that our factory's tools and knives are quite old, and I redesigned them. I made a set for Mrs. Liang for experiments, and since she used my set of cutting tools, the qualified rate of processed parts has reached 75%. How could it be a crooked way? After listening, Director Yang looked at the workshop director and said, is the pass rate of the parts processed by Xiao Wang and Liang Hong what Mr. Zhang said recently? The workshop director nodded and said, Factory director, yes, the qualified rate of the products we entered the factory with Comrade Liang Hong is currently only 40%, and even 20%. Wow, hearing the workshop director say this, the people in the workshop were in a state of uproar. Zhang, is it so impressive? It's just that he designed a set of cutting tools that can actually increase the qualification rate so much. I'll find Mr. Zhang later and see if he can also help me with a set of tools. At the beginning of this book, there is a trend of public repentance, but the subsequent plot is the result of the author's own contemplation and hard work in coding. If he still falls under the old man's eye, he will be rewarded with some flower tickets. Hee hee. Chapter 5. Establishing an investigation team. Lu Haizhong is a bit flustered. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Everyone wants Zhang Hao to make a set of tools for them, every word you say. Director Yang looked at Zhang Hao helplessly and said, what do you think, Mr. Zhang? Zhang Hao shrugged and said, Director Yang, don't look at me. It was also by chance that I obtained some special materials to make it. I don't have this material on hand now, so I can't make it. However, it is said that materials like beautiful country are rampant. There are definitely not many in China now. Engineer Zhang, although the tools you made are good, you have now damaged the machines in the factory. You have to talk about this, Zhonghai said. Zhonghai felt jealous in his heart that Zhang Hao made tools for Liang Hong. In fact, the set of knives that Zhang Hao made in the beginning was given to Li Jianshe, who gave it to his wife. The next day, Liang Hong took it to the factory and used it once. Zhonghai and Lu Haizhong both fell in love with it. After trying to intimidate and lure him, Lu Haizhong came up with this trick. Lu Haizhong tampered with a gear inside Liang Hong's machine, and as soon as it ran, it would shatter the crucial gear. Zhang Hao didn't talk nonsense either. After talking to Director Yang, he came to Liang Hong's machine. After greeting Liang Hong, we started inspecting the machine. Because of his ultimate research and development skills, after checking for a while, he found out the reason. After opening the machine tool and exploring for a while, Zhang Hao took out the broken gear. Zhang Hao took a look at the gear in his hand and saw that someone had tampered with it, so his face turned cold. Director Yang noticed that Zhang Hao's expression was not right, so he walked up and asked, what's wrong with Mr. Zhang? Director, you see this gear has been tampered with by someone, Zhang Hao said, handing the gear in his hand to Director Yang. Director Yang understood this knowledge to some extent, and after reading for a while, he also noticed the problem. He quickly called the workshop director over and said, who else was still in front of this machine besides Xiao Liang, after Xiao Wang finished work yesterday and this morning? Upon hearing this, Xiao Wang broke out in a cold sweat. He knew that this matter was too big and would damage important national resources. In severe cases, he could be dragged to eat peanuts. Xiao Wang thought for a moment and said, "Factory director, I came with most of the workers and we also left together." "I'm not sure about that." Upon hearing the workshop director's words, the director's face turned increasingly black, while Zhang Hao scanned Zhonghai, Qin Huairu, and others in the bangs, seeing that Zhonghai and Qin Huairu's faces were normal, but their faces in the bangs were not right and a bit pale. Zhang Hao already knew it in his heart. Workshop Director Wang Changfu looked at Director Yang's expression and immediately said, "Director, the security department should be clear." When Lu Haizhong heard that the workshop director was going to find the security department, his body couldn't help but shake. Zhang Hao ignored these matters and just said to the factory director, "Director, this gear is broken now and we need to go to the original factory to find matching parts." The factory director looked at Zhang Hao with a bitter smile and said, "Zhang, this machine is supported by Mao Xiong. Now that we have cut off contact with Mao Xiong, there is nothing we can do. Can you think of a solution?" Upon hearing this, Zhang Hao pondered for a moment and said, "Why don't we do this for now? I'll process a few more gears and replace them every other month. However, this is also a temporary solution, as the gears used in the machine are made of special steel. Our country doesn't have this type of steel yet. I'll come back and think of a solution to see if we can develop a formula for this steel." The factory director nodded at the words and said, "Thank you, Mr. Zhang." Then the factory director looked at everyone with a serious expression and said, "The nature of this matter today is too bad. I will establish an investigation team to deal with this matter, and finding out who did it will definitely be punished severely." After speaking, Director Yang left angrily, while Zhang Hao went to a lathe to start the machine and start machining gears. Half an hour later, Zhang Hao successfully processed 7 gears, took out one, and installed it on the machine over there. After installation, Zhang Hao tried to start the machine and it started perfectly, but the sound was a bit off. "Zhang Gong is really impressive. I didn't expect that all machine parts could be processed by himself. Who said it's not right? Look at Zhang, he's only in his 20s and has such a high level of technical skills. I don't know if Mr. Zhang has any partners either. I heard that Qin Huairu had been married to Zhang Gong before, and in the end, all the dowry was prepared. When Qin Huairu turned her back on her promise, she immediately married Jia Dongxu. After the matter was over, her mother-in-law also wanted to extort Zhang Gong's money. Finally, Zhang Gong reported to the police, and this matter was resolved." Listening to everyone's words, Qin Huairu kept regretting her original decision. Zhonghai, on the other hand, shouted loudly with a black face, "What are you doing? Are you not doing any work?" Zhonghai is currently a level 7 fitter, and there are not many level 7 workers in the entire factory, so everyone should listen to what he says. Lu Haizhong is worried, although he knows that no one will see him when he comes, he is just afraid of the unexpected. After Zhang Hao handed over the machine to Liang Hong, he handed over a few gears on his hand to the workshop director and returned to his office. A day passed like this, and it was time to get off work again. Apart from Liang Hong's machine having some problems, there was nothing else to do today. The workers, who had been busy all day, rushed towards the factory gate one by one with their lunch boxes. Zhang Hao was the last batch to leave the factory. Chapter 6. Malicious Jia Family Mother and Son. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Returning to the courtyard, Qin Huairu was waiting for the silly pillar again. Seeing Zhang Hao, Qinhuai wanted to go up and talk, but Zhang Hao didn't pay any attention to her. Silly Zhu appeared in Qin Huairu's sight, and this super big licking dog, Silly Zhu, quickly welcomed him. "Qin Jia, why are you here? Isn't it cold here?" Qin Huairu's eyes turned red when she heard these words and said, "Pillar, you don't know. Bang Ji is making a fuss about wanting to eat meat, which is also useless for me as a mother. Even the children can't eat meat now. Bang Ji and his family have been starving and losing weight recently. Hearing the words, silly Column hurriedly replied. Sister Qin, you can't say that. Now in this situation, the teachers have given up their braised pork belly. The national conditions are like this. Qin Huairu said, although that's the case, you also know that I am still an apprentice now, with a monthly salary of 15.5 yuan. This salary is not enough to pull this big family. Qin Huairu's words are both inside and outside, pretending to be pitiful and asking for money. And our quadrangle god of war just ate this trick. Qin Jia is like this, you take the lunch box back first, and tonight we will discuss this matter with an old man. What do you think? Qin Huairu responded and went back with her lunchbox. Silly Zhu looked at Qin Huairu's plump figure and his saliva was almost flowing. He thought to himself, Qin Jia is such a good person, it's a pity to marry into the Jia family. Initially, Qin Huairu had just arrived at the courtyard and wanted to cut off her beard. However, at that time, Jia Dongxu was paralyzed and Qin Huairu began her dog training plan. When Zhang Hao returned home, the winter in the 4 or 9 cities of this era was really cold, but Zhang Hao had drunk genetic potions, so he didn't feel cold. Zhang Hao took out 2 pounds of Siheyuan beef, and there were still a few potatoes at home. In the evening, Zhang Hao planned to make a potato braised beef and steam some white rice. When Zhang Hao was cooking, the courtyard was filled with fragrance, causing unbearable suffering for the people living in the courtyard. Jia, Qin Huairu brought back silly Zhu's lunch box and heated it up. As soon as it was brought to the table, Jia Zhang took the steamed bun and started eating it. Jia Dongxu was also eating it while lying in bed, and the 3 little white-eyed wolves were also enjoying it. When the aroma of the food cooked by Zhang Hao spread to the Jia family, Jia Zhang immediately cursed loudly. Damn Zhang Hao, little beast, he won't be able to make a living. One day, he will be so contrived that sooner or later he will be poor to eat. I don't know where he got these meat, I think he must be a speculator. Jia Dongxu pondered for a moment upon hearing the words and said to Jia Zhang, Mom, what you said has a certain point. In this famine year, he ate pork yesterday and beef today. I think he must be speculating. Take some time to report him. Speculation in this era is a serious crime, and it's possible that one would want to eat peanuts. It can be seen from this that the mother and son of the Jia family have a malicious heart, but the system has arranged everything in ways out. Even if the Jia family mother and son were exhausted to death, nothing would happen, let alone Zhang Hao, who has made great contributions to the country. Due to Zhang Hao's appearance, the country released the artillery battle 2 years ahead of schedule, which will be released in the early winter of this year. Therefore, as long as Zhang Hao does not betray the country will meet Zhang Hao's requirements. Qin Huairu hated these 2 fools to death in her heart. Zhang Hao's flesh had yarn problems, and the mother and son just couldn't see each other well. In fact, Qin Huairu also hated Zhang Hao in her heart, and now that she's like this, she won't help her. Qin Huairu thought to herself but still spoke up, Dongxu, Mom, this is not good. Zhang Hao is now the highest income person in our hospital. If we offend him, we will never be able to help our family in the future. Jia Dongxu. Qin Huairu, are you seeing Zhang Hao's success now? With better living conditions, you want to embrace him. Jia Zhang also took the conversation and said, yes, if it weren't for marrying you, the broom star, my son wouldn't have done this either. As long as my son and I are still here, you can't have any other man. Upon hearing this, Qin Huairu's tears were streaming down her face, and she was truly made to cry foolishly by these mother and son. Mom, I want to eat meat. Bang Ji threw the steamed bun and rolled on the ground. The stick meme over there was making a fuss about wanting to eat meat, and Qin Huairu sighed in her heart, hey, this big family, when will it be over? Jia Zhang looked at Bang Ji wanting to eat meat, so she scolded and said, alright, who should I cry for? I didn't see my obedient grandson wanting to eat meat. Why don't you go to Zhang Hao's house and order some? Upon hearing this, Qin Huairu's face turned ugly. She knew it might not be possible to go, but when she saw the stick meme and made a fuss, she thought of her beauty and thought she could give it a try. Qin Huairu walked out of the house without saying a word. A master's house. A middle-aged woman sighed and said, "Hey, everyone underestimated Zhang Hao back then, but now Zhang Hao is really making a name for himself." An old man said, "Even if he's successful, he doesn't know how to respect his elders. Look at the tools he made for Li Jianshe, he doesn't know how to make a set for me first, and he doesn't know how to show filial piety to the deaf old lady even if he makes something delicious." Zhonghai's words have a sour taste. Is it possible for Zhonghai to help the Jia family, distort black and white and blackmail Zhang Hao, and then want Zhang Hao to listen to his words and show filial piety to him? Is he compatible? Li Jianshe helped Zhang Hao during his most difficult time, and Zhang Hao is now repaying his family with gratitude. Second Grandpa's house. Second Uncle Lu Haizhong sat on the Kong, drinking wine and thinking about things, while second aunt ate eggs and steamed buns. The two brothers Lu Guangtian were eating steamed buns and pickled vegetables, while Lu Guangfu noticed that the second uncle was absent-minded, so he secretly added chopsticks and eggs. As soon as the eggs were added, the second uncle slapped him and blew Lu Guangfu under the Kong. After finishing the fight, the second uncle scolded, "Little beast, can you also eat my eggs?" Lu Guangtian trembled on the side, while a hint of resentment flashed in Lu Guangfu's eyes. This is a typical manifestation of parents being merciless and their children being unfilial. The second aunt also scolded Lu Guangfu. Third master's family. The whole family was eating and smelling the aroma of meat. The third aunt sighed and said, "Hey, my wife, did we help the Jia family by deceiving Zhang Hao back then? We didn't even get a penny off." Looking at Li Jianshe again, since his paralysis, Zhang Hao has been delivering food to Li Jianshe's family every now and then. Third Grandpa Yan Bugue said, "Who said it's not? I need to plan carefully and see how I can take advantage of Zhang Hao." The other members of the Yan family also followed suit. Su Dumao lives alone in the backyard, and his parents have already moved out. Su Dumao is fantasizing in his heart that he will marry the Miss Lu of the Lu family and achieve great success, and then he will also take good care of the foolish pillar. Upon smelling the fragrance of meat, Su Dumao cursed inwardly, "Damn it, Zhang Hao is eating meat again. Wait, when I marry the Miss Lu of the Lu family, I will show off well in front of you." Then Su Dumao ordered some white flour mantou and congee with cabbage. The deaf old lady in the backyard was eating a meal brought by a middle-aged woman, smelling the aroma of meat, and sighed, "Hey, we've all looked at each other back then. Who would have thought that the young man from the Zhang family would be so successful?" Chapter 7. Qin Huairu's door rejected. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Zhang Hao didn't know what the birds were thinking at home, but was happily entertaining a little girl. "That's right, nice little girl. It's Li Nan. Li Nan just came for a while." Li Nan watched Zhang Hao busy in the kitchen and ran in, hugging Zhang Hao's leg and sweetly asking, "Uncle, what are you doing?" Zhang Hao touched the little girl's head and said, "Hee, guess what?" The little girl took a breath and shook her head in disappointment. "Uncle Hao, Nan can't guess." Zhang Hao looked at the expression on the little girl's face and was also happy. Nan can't guess. "Uncle, let me tell you." Nan looked at Zhang Hao with cute big eyes and said, "Uncle, what is it? Tell me quickly." Zhang Hao nodded at the tip of the little girl's nose and said, "It's braised beef with potatoes and white rice. Do you want to eat it?" Nan first felt happy, then lowered her head in disappointment and said, "Uncle, Nan doesn't eat." Mom and Dad said Uncle is not easy either and can't eat other people's food casually. Upon hearing this, Zhang Hao felt really happy for this sensible little girl. Let's take a look at Nan's performance and then at the other children in the courtyard, especially the children from Qin Huairu's family. Zhang Hao squatted down and said to the little girl, "Girl, your mother is right, but Uncle doesn't lack food. We can work to exchange for food." The little girl's eyes lit up when she heard this, and she quickly asked, "Uncle, how about I do household chores for you?" Zhang Hao is not squeezing children, he is just establishing the correct values for Nan Nan. Zhang Hao said, "Nan can help uncle burn the fire. You also contribute to cooking like this." The little girl said, "Uncle, I can do it. Then I'll go see the fire." Zhang Hao nodded and said, "Be careful not to burn it." The little girl happily went to set fire. Zhang Hao watched the little girl walk on her short legs, smiled helplessly, and then took out a large bowl of rice from the rice jar to wash. Dong dong dong. Zhang Hao was washing rice inside the room when he heard a knock on the door. "Zhang Hao. Who is it?" "I'm Huairu." Qin Huairu's voice came from outside the door. Upon hearing Qin Huairu's voice, Zhang Hao pondered for a moment and understood that what Qin Huairu was doing was nothing more than asking for meat. After thinking about it, Zhang Hao went to open the door. Opening the door with a cold expression, he looked at Qin Huairu and said, "Is there anything wrong?" Qin Huairu looked at Zhang Hao with a cold face and pretended not to see him. She said pitifully, "Haozi, they want to eat meat. Can you give me some?" Zhang Hao chuckled playfully upon hearing these words and said, "Qin Huairu, I'm not familiar with you, either call me by my full name or call me Zhang Gong, and my family doesn't have any extra meat. What does it have to do with me if your child wants to eat meat? What are you looking for me for when you want to eat meat and find your child's father?" After Zhang Hao finished speaking, he closed the door. Qin Huairu closed the door and felt angry in her heart, but she wouldn't show it because the character she created for herself was gentle, and virtuous. Qin Huairu saw Zhang Hao so heartless and had no choice, so she went back. After Qin Huairu returned home, Jia Zhang and Jia Dongxu cursed Qin Huairu for being incompetent. After cursing Qin Huairu, they started cursing Zhang Hao again. After Jia Zhang finished cursing, he said to the crying stick, "Good grandson, Zhang Hao, this bastard, won't wait until he's not at home. Go and get it yourself." In the eyes of Jia Zhang, going to someone else's house to pick up things for his grandson is not called stealing, but rather taking. Upon hearing this, Bang Gung's eyes lit up and he said to Jia Zhang, "Grandma, look at me. If you don't move all the things in Zhang Hao's house, I won't be Jia Zhen." Qin Huairu wanted to stop him, but he had the lowest status in this family and had no choice, and she also hated Zhang Hao for not helping her. After Zhang Hao and Nan Nan finished the food together, Zhang Hao filled a large bowl with rice, and then used a large bowl to fill a bowl full of potatoes and beef. "Nan Nan, the food has been prepared for you. You earned it yourself. Are you going home to eat or are you eating here?" Zhang Hao said to Nan Nan after finishing the meal. Xiao Nan Nan said in a cute voice, "Uncle Hao, I'll go back and eat with my parents." Zhang Hao felt very relieved. This little girl is really sensible, and even in front of the delicious food, she still thinks of her parents. Zhang Hao said, "Okay, I'll take you home." As he spoke, Zhang Hao was carrying rice and Xiao Nan Nan was carrying potatoes and beef. The two of them walked out of the house, and Zhang Haran locked the door because there was a thief in this yard. When Liang Hong from Li Jianshe's family returned today, she told him about what happened in the factory today. After hearing this, Li Jianshe fell into contemplation. Liang Hong said that she was deliberately framed, and the person who framed her, Li Jianshe, also guessed 8 or 9 without leaving 10. Although the first master is hypocritical, he is not yet capable of resorting to such despicable means. It is highly likely that the second master did it. After understanding, Li Jianshe spoke to Liang Hong and said, "Daughter.in.law, there is a high possibility that this matter was done by second uncle." Liang Hong was surprised and said, "Construction, don't you think so? Have I ever offended second uncle?" Li Jianshe smiled helplessly and said, "Daughter-in-law, you don't have a thorough understanding of people. Second uncle is narrow-minded and likes to act like an official. When he asked you for that set of tools, you refused, which offended him. Although I have also asked you about it, it is true that I am hypocritical, but because of my identity, I am not the one who did this, because once this incident was exposed, his reputation collapsed throughout the entire street. Liang Hong frowned at the words and said, "Aren't those two gentlemen afraid that this matter will be exposed?" Li Jianshi sneered and said, "Daughter-in-law, you also look up too high on second uncle." With his brain, he couldn't consider this step. Liang Hong was a bit scared when Li Jianshi said this and said, "Do you know about this today?" Li Jianshi thought for a moment and said, "Daughter-in-law, I can't say for sure, but I estimate that Mr. One knows, but he just pretends not to know, and I guess an old man wants to use today's situation to drive you out of the workshop, then he can rightfully take away the tools in your hand." Liang Hong exclaimed in surprise, "Ah! Is the set of tools that Xiao Zhang gave us so good that even the 7th level fitter wants it?" Li Jianshi naturally said, "I have seen the set of tools that Xiao Zhang gave us at home. With this set of tools, not to mention the 7th level fitter, Mr. E, even the second master, a level 6 fitter, can be promoted to level 8 fitter. Do you think this set of tools is impressive?" Liang Hong smiled bitterly and said, "Hey, it seems that this tool cannot be saved. So many people are thinking about it. Daughter-in-law, you don't have to worry either. If this happens, they should be safe for a while. After a while, when my legs are healed, you can rest at home." Chapter 8. The Calculation of Zhonghai, Shazhu and Qin Huairu. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Li Jianshi saw Liang Hong's concerns and said with a smile. Upon hearing this, Liang Hong only comforted herself as her own man, but also cooperated and said, "Construction, if it's okay, you can rest assured and take care of our family." Li Jianshi looked at Liang Hong's incredulous gaze and spoke seriously, "Wife, my legs have regained consciousness." Upon hearing this, Liang Hong was taken aback for a moment and then asked excitedly, "Is construction real?" Li Jianshi nodded and then lifted the blanket he had covered, revealing his legs. "Daughter-in-law, look," she said, even moving her legs. Although it was only a slight fluctuation, Liang Hong was stunned when she saw this scene. Excited, she quickly stepped forward and covered Li Jianshi with a blanket, saying, "Build your legs. It really works." Li Jianshi nodded at the words and said, "We all have to thank Xiao Hao for his amazing medical skills." His tone was full of emotion. Liang Hong said happily, "Is this what the ancients said? Good deeds are rewarded with good deeds." Upon hearing this, Li Jianshi also sighed and said, "Hey, we were just helping Xiao Hao to say a fair word. I didn't expect Xiao Hao to help us so much now. Mom and Dad, I'm back." Just as the two were talking, the little girl ran in happily. Just as Li Jianshi and his wife were chatting, Nan Nan ran in, followed closely by Zhang Hao. Liang Hong stepped forward and suddenly caught a tantalizing aroma. She looked at the bowl in Nan Nan's hand and asked angrily, "Nan Nan, did you go to your Uncle Hao's house to ask for something to eat?" Nan Nan saw that her mother was angry and hid behind Zhang Hao with a frightened expression, explaining, "Mom is Uncle Hao. He said this is what I deserve." Upon hearing this, Liang Hong became even angrier and said seriously, "Nan Nan, Mom always thought you were a good kid, and now you've learned to lie." Upon hearing this, Nan Nan burst into tears with a look of grievance on her face. "Mom, I didn't lie. It was my uncle who said I was cooking for him, and he said it was a collaboration between the two of us." Zhang Hao quickly stepped forward and said, "My sister-in-law and little girl are telling the truth. I can't be busy alone, so the girl came to help me. Don't blame the girl." Upon hearing this, Liang Hong knew that Zhang Hao was intentionally helping their family. She then approached and squatted down to wipe the little girl's eyes, saying, "It's not right for the girl to be a mother. Don't cry." The girl stopped her tears and looked at Liang Hong, "Does Mom still blame me?" Liang Hong shook her head. Zhang Hao placed the bowl and basin in his hand on the dining table at Li Jianshe's house, and then said to Li Jianshi, "Did Li feel better today?" Li Jianshi gratefully said upon hearing Zhang Hao's words, "I moved my legs this morning and my lower body still hurts a lot, but it stopped in the afternoon. Zhang Hao said, "Well, that's right. In the morning, your lower body's blood hasn't fully circulated, so it will be very painful. In the afternoon, your blood vessels will be smooth, so the pain will be much relieved." As Zhang Hao spoke, he took out a piece of paper from his pocket and handed it to Liang Hong, saying, "This is the medicine that Li Gu needs to take, and it's not very expensive. Sister-in-law, you can go to the Baichao Tang tomorrow to catch it, and there are all the medicines there." Liang Hong stepped forward to take the prescription and knelt directly in front of Zhang Hao, saying, "Haozi, with my respect, you have shown kindness to our family again." Zhang Hao was startled by Liang Hong's kneeling and quickly grabbed her, saying, "Sister-in-law, your family has saved my life. Without you, I would have lost Zhang Hao's life. Don't be so indifferent." After staying at the Li family for a while, Zhang Hao went out. When he walked out of Li Jianshe's house, he saw Silly Zhu and Qin Huairu going to Zhonghai's house. Seeing these two people, Zhang Hao didn't say hello and brushed past them directly. Watching Zhang Hao ignore them, Qin Huairu felt both sadness and resentment in her heart, while our licking dog, the god of war, cursed and said, "I don't even understand the most basic manners." When Silly Zhu said these words, he didn't even think about how the entire courtyard, except for Li Jianshi and his family, treated Zhang Hao. Qin Huairu tugged at Shazhu's arm and said, "Let's go. It's important to find an old man to handle important matters." Zhang Hao returned home and started eating, thinking about going out for a walk tomorrow. Anyway, he won't be working tomorrow. In fact, as Zhang Hao, as long as there is a steel rolling mill, he can go when there is nothing to do. However, Zhang Hao does not want to seek privileges. Since he came into this era, he has integrated into it. Therefore, since he became an engineer, he has never been absent from work. Zhang Hao was having a delicious meal on his side, while Qin Huairu and Silly Zhu came to an old man's house. As soon as Qin Huairu arrived at an old man's house, she cried bitterly and said how difficult it was for her family, and Silly Zhu also spoke up beside her. Silly Zhu holds a significant weight in Zhonghai's heart because he has no children, so retirement has become his only major concern. Previously, he had a crush on his disciples Jia Dongxu and Silly Zhu, but since Jia Dongxu was deposed, he has been focusing on Silly Zhu. Zhonghai pondered for a moment and said, "Huairu, then we will hold a general meeting of the entire hospital later to raise funds." Upon hearing this, Qin Huairu quickly nodded and said, "Thank you, Grandpa. I'll leave this matter to you." "Grandpa, you are really a good person," Silly Pillar agreed beside him. After listening, Zhonghai spoke up and said, "Hey, fundraising is easy to handle, but there needs to be someone who takes the lead in fundraising." Qin Huairu frowned at the words. Silly Zhu spoke directly and said, "Grandpa, with you and me leading the way, that's enough." Zhonghai shook his head and said, "Pillar, things are not as simple as you think. I am Dongxu's master, and you and Huairu are usually close. If we take the lead, it may not be effective." Qin Huairu was also lost in thought when she heard Zhonghai's words. She felt that Zhonghai's words made sense. And Silly Zhu directly spoke up and asked, "What do you think to do with that old man?" Zhonghai thought for a moment and said, "If someone with a bad relationship with the Jia family takes the lead in donating, it will be much easier." Silly Zhu thought of Zhang Hao and Su Damao and asked, "If Zhang Hao and Su Damao take the lead, many people would probably donate." Upon hearing this, Qin Huairu's eyes lit up and then dimmed. Su Damao is a master who never sees a rabbit and never scatters an eagle, and Zhang Hao and the Jia family will definitely not donate until they die. Zhonghai shook his head and said, "Huairu, sometimes people have to learn to be indirect. Zhang Hao has a bad relationship with the Jia family, but a good relationship with the Li family. If we start with Li Jianshi, we should be able to persuade Zhang Hao." Zhonghai is truly a remarkable figure in the entire quadrangle courtyard, with extraordinary scheming and vision. He even thought of using Li Jianshe's family to manipulate Zhang Hao. Silly Zhu felt happy upon hearing this and said, yes, how could I not have thought of this layer? Qin Huairu thought for a moment and then said, who will go find Li Jianshe's family? Silly Zhu spoke up directly and said, first grandpa, go find second grandpa and third grandpa. I'll go with you to Li Jianshe's house. Qin Huairu thought for a moment and said, okay, if Li Jianshe and his family don't agree, I'll kneel down for them. Silly Zhu stared at Qin Huairu's words and said, he dares to see if I don't beat him to death. Zhonghai quickly advised the foolish pillar, Li Jianshe is like Dongxu. If you hit Li Jianshe, Liang Hong will definitely call the police, but you have to go to jail. Zhonghai gave a few instructions, and then the three of them began to act separately. Chapter 9. Qin Huairu and Silly Pillar eating weakness at Li Jianshe's home. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Li Jianshe's family, consisting of three beautiful people, are eating potatoes and beef. Liang Hong's bowl is mostly filled with potatoes, and the beef has been given to Li Jianshe and Xiao Nan Nan. Li Jianshe is now recovering and needs nutrition, but Nan Nan has been malnourished since childhood. Li Jianshe originally intended to give the beef to Liang Hong, but Liang Hong refused. At least Liang Hong reluctantly added a few slices of beef to herself. Dong dong dong. A family of three were eating when there was a knock on the door. Liang Hong and Li Jianshe glanced at each other and said, who is that? I'm Huairu. Qin Huairu's voice came from outside the door. Liang Hong said to Li Jianshe, it's Qin Huairu. Upon hearing Qin Huairu's voice, Li Jianshe frowned and gestured for Liang Hong to open the door. Liang Hong nodded and went to open the door. With a hoarse sound, Li Jianshe's door opened. Liang Hong saw Qin Huairu and Silly Zhu and asked, it's so late, what's up with you? Qin Huairu's acting skills were impressive, and her eyes turned red. Sister-in-law, do you think we can go in and talk? Let them in, daughter.in.law, Li Jianshe's voice came from inside the house. Upon hearing this, Liang Hong opened the door and said to Ren, come in. Liang Hong didn't have a good expression towards the two of them. The current situation of her own family was caused by Qin Huairu's family. Qin Huairu and Silly Zhu walked into Li Jianshe's house without seeing Liang Hong's face. Li Jianshe saw these two people and directly asked, do you have anything to do? Qin Huairu said, Brother Jianshe, I'm here to see you. Qin Huairu wants to get close first and then mention it. Li Jianshe glanced at Qin Huairu and realized that he had been lying at home for so many years without seeing anyone from their family. Come over now. There must be something going on. Li Jianshe didn't reveal it and said directly, well, then everything is fine with me. If there's nothing else, you guys go first. Our family is going to eat. Since you don't say why you came, I'll have to drive you away. Qin Huairu looked embarrassed. At this moment, Silly Zhu spoke up and said, Hua, the food is good, stewed beef with potatoes. Silly Zhu was actually not foolish, but wanted to start the conversation from the perspective of food. Li Jianshe nodded with a smile and said, yes, Xiao Hao saw that our family is pitiful and brought it to our house. Silly Zhu said, yes, the situation at Jianshe Qin's family is even worse than yours. You see, the third brother and sister of Bang Gung haven't eaten meat for a long time. Liang Hong interjected directly upon hearing this and said, why, should we give the food that Haozi gave to our family to the Jia family? Qin Huairu swallowed her saliva, and she hadn't eaten meat for a long time. It's just that their goal this time isn't this little bit of meat. They want Zhang Hao to help their family, so we can't afford to lose the big for the small. Qin Huairu smiled and said, sister-in-law, it's not appropriate for us to take the things that Haozi has given to your family. It's not suitable, so what are you doing here for? Li Jianshe said. Upon hearing this, Silly Zhu stopped talking nonsense and said, Brother Jianshe, you know that Zhang Hao has the highest income in our yard, but Zhang Hao doesn't have love. This is because Zhang Hao has a good relationship with you. Can you help persuade Zhang Hao to also help Qin Jia and her family? It's not easy for Qin Jia to be pulled by a woman. The sound of the three words, silly pillar, is particularly strong, which means that you cannot refuse to see Qin Jia so difficult. Upon hearing these words, Jianshe immediately became cold and said, I cannot interfere or interrupt whether Haozi accepts or squeezes the Jia family. As for Haozi's lack of love and not helping others, I would like to ask Qin Huairu, what qualifications do you have for Haozi to assist your family? That's right, I don't care about the bad things my mother-in-law did back then, but now she still has the face to help. Liang Hong was very grateful to Zhang Hao, so her words disregarded the faces of both of them. Silly Zhu said angrily upon hearing this, sister-in-law, if that's not what you said, who knows if Zhang Hao did anything to Qin Jia back then. Qin Huairu blushed and shed tears without explaining. Upon hearing Silly Zhu's words, Liang Hong immediately cursed, stupid. Did Haozi ever tamper with Qin Huairu back then? She knows it herself, and we don't want to know. We won't help with this matter. When Silly Zhu heard Liang Hong scold him, he clenched his hands into fists and was filled with veins in anger. Liang Hong didn't hesitate to mock Silly Zhu and said, Silly Zhu, why did you mention the pain point and want to hit someone? Today, you can give me a try. I won't go to the Women's Federation and the police to sue you. I'm all your granddaughter. Zhang Hao had previously told Liang Hong that when encountering such a situation, he could go to many departments to respond, so he said this directly. Upon hearing these words, Silly Zhu was so angry that he wished he could leave in place, but he dared not. Liang Hong's words made him wary. If he really hits Liang Hong, according to the temperament of Liang Hong and Jianshe, he must be sent in. At that time, not only will he go to prison, but his reputation will also be tarnished. Bullying disabled women in the family, this matter is likely to become a hot topic on the streets and alleys when it spreads. At that time, not to mention marrying a big yellow flower girl, even a widow could not marry him. Fame was very important in this era. Qin Huairu grabbed the silly pillar and didn't answer Liang Hong's words. She cried and begged Jianshe, you can help my family. After the man in my family had that incident, my family relied solely on me as an apprentice to earn money and support 6 people. It's really difficult. Jianshe said, your family brought it on their own, it's not Jia Dongxu's violation of regulations. What would have happened like this? Liang Hong said, that's right, my construction has also been damaged by your family like this. I don't welcome you when you go. As Liang Hong spoke, he blasted these 2 people out. After being blasted out, the 2 stood at the doorstep of Jianshe's house. Qin Huairu asked, what should Sister Silly Zhu do? She cried again as she spoke. Silly Zhu comforted Qin Huairu when he saw her crying, saying, Qin Jia, this family is just as heartless as Zhang Hao. We must take good care of Liang Hong after work. Let's go find an old man now. Silly Zhu is the head chef of a steel rolling mill and also a bully. If anyone offends him, they will have to give someone a shake of the spoon. Moreover, the high illiteracy rate and weak self-protection awareness of workers nowadays have fueled the arrogance of people like Silly Zhu. Qin Huairu nodded and then the 2 went to the courtyard together. Today is the 9th chapter, and there is another chapter. Ladies and gentlemen, please give some flower tickets to the humble author. Hee. Chapter 10. Angry Draw on Jia and Zhang clan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Qin Huairu and Silly Zhu are both at the master's house. Zhonghai spoke up and asked, so, how are you doing on your end? Qin Huairu cried with red eyes, Grandpa, Jianshe is unwilling to help. That's right, that family doesn't have any love, agreed Silly Zhu. Upon hearing this, the old man frowned and thought for a moment before saying, actually, I predicted that this would be the case. It's just possible for you to try it out, is it okay? However, it's okay. When the general meeting of the whole court is held later, we will unite with the whole court to put pressure on Zhang Hao. If we don't believe him, we won't comply. Upon hearing this, Qin Huairu and silly Zhu were delighted. Qin Huairu went back and told the news to Jia Zhang, who danced happily. Jia Dongxu also had a happy expression on his face. The birds over there were thinking about calculating Zhang Hao, while Zhang Hao looked at the empty room and felt a sense of loneliness in a different time and space. Everyone has come out to hold a general meeting of the entire courtyard. While Zhang Hao was sighing, Zhonghai's voice came from the middle courtyard. Zhang Hao muttered to himself, "What's going on? We're having a whole house meeting again." After finishing, he opened the door and walked out. This year, there are not many entertainment activities, so the entire conference is a place for everyone to watch the excitement. Zhang Hao went out and watched as people from both the backyard and front yard came to the courtyard. In the middle of the courtyard, there was a square table with 3 teacups on it. The 3 gentlemen sat on the 3 sides of the table, one on top, one on the left, and one on the right. The second uncle saw that everyone was here, so he coughed twice to clear his throat and said, "Cough, cough, it's like this." Since Dongxu's legs had problems, Huairu has been taking over Dongxu's class and has been earning an apprentice's salary. It's not easy to support a family of 6. The second uncle talked a lot about it, meaning that everyone should donate money to help the Jia family. Let the first man speak a few words. The second man became addicted to officialdom and handed over the right to speak to Zhonghai. After taking up the topic, an old man said directly, "Our yard is a big family, and everyone should actively help those in need." After the old man finished speaking, he looked at everyone. I have to donate to the Jia family again, once a week. This is really unbearable. The Jia family is not easy, and we are not easy either. We donate every day. After discussing for a while, no one donated. At this moment, Su Damao stood up and said, "Let me tell you a few gentlemen. Since Jia Dongxu had an accident, everyone in the Jia family has been donating money every day and every 2 days. It's really hard to bear it. I haven't married a wife yet." Yeah, it's not easy for the Jia family, is it easy for us? Su Damao's words aroused everyone's agreement. At this moment, silly Zhu stood up and said, "Grandpa, the person with the highest income in our yard has never donated before. Why don't we let him take the lead in donating and let him contribute more so that everyone can contribute less?" Upon hearing this, everyone agreed and looked towards Zhang Hao, who was standing at the very edge. Jia Zhang quickly said, "Yes, Mr. Zhang Hao is not kind-hearted. Let him donate more to us, preferably 500 yuan. Zhang Hao watched the performance of the birds without speaking, and then sneered at them. While Jia Zhang's words caused a commotion among everyone, it was a robbery. Zhang Hao remained silent, but Liang Hong from Li Jianshe's family was not willing. She directly spoke up and said, "Aunt Zhang, why don't you go to the bank to steal money? It's faster to get money." Upon hearing Liang Hong's words, Jia Zhang cursed loudly and said, "You're not a good person either. My Dongxu was harmed by your family." Jia Zhang's ability to make a sharp move is quite impressive. Liang Hong was so angry that he wanted to scold her back. Zhang Hao walked over and grabbed her, saying, "Sister-in-law, what do you think about dogs? You were bitten by a dog, are you still biting back?" Puha, Zhang Hao's speech is so interesting. And Jia Zhang's anger was almost exploding. Just as she was about to curse back, she was grabbed by Qin Huairu and whispered in her ear, "Now is not the time to calm down." Upon hearing this, Jia Zhang thought for a moment and then withdrew from his position. Zhang Hao didn't care if Jia Zhang acted as a demon, but signaled to Zhonghai to continue. He wanted to see what kind of flower work the beasts could play tonight. Zhonghai also had a dark face. Jia Zhang is really good at bad things. However, Zhonghai still looked at the second and third masters and said, "What do you think, 2 of you?" Second grandpa. Agree. I don't think there's any problem, said the third master with a smile as he thought Zhang Hao would have to pay at this moment. Zhonghai looked at Zhang Hao and said, Haozi, you see everyone agrees. You are also an engineer in the factory, with a salary of up to 160, and we don't want you to donate 500. Just donate 100. Zhang Hao smiled and replied, why do I have to donate? The old man was a bit angry when he heard this and said, look, this is what everyone asked you to donate. Zhang Hao said, I can't even make my own decisions about the money I earn. Do you have to make your own decisions? Does this rule exist in the law? After Zhang Hao finished speaking, before the old man could speak, Silly Zhu spoke up, Zhang Hao, you're such a big engineer. With so much money in a month, Qin's family is facing such difficulties. Why are you so heartless? When Silly Zhu said these words, Qin Huairu's acting skills improved and she looked pitiful at Zhang Hao, saying, Haozi, you helped me this time. I will definitely thank you more in the future. Jia Zhang also spoke with a natural expression, that's right, everyone is in the same yard. You have no conscience and won't help my family. What Jia Zhang said is taken for granted. Zhang Hao saw this posture, it was a joint effort by the birds to force him. The old man spoke up and said, Haozi, this is a good opportunity for you to ease your relationship with everyone. Zhang Hao chuckled playfully and said, I don't want this opportunity anymore. I can help kind-hearted people, but I'm sorry. Zhang Hao said in a serious tone, pausing word by word, my, money, no, yes, donate, give, bird, beast, and I don't want to ease our relationship with beasts. As soon as Zhang Hao spoke these words, Jia Zhang exploded in place and cursed loudly, what kind of animal gave birth to a little animal like you? Who animal should I curse at? Zhang Hao heard Jia Zhang scolding his parents for being a brute, but without hesitation, he quickly stepped forward and grabbed Jia Zhang's collar with one hand, then slapped her with a big mouth. Pop 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 pop. Jia and Zhang were all blinded. Zhang Hao slapped more than 10 big mouths in a row before stopping his hand. Jia Zhang was slapped more than 10 big mouths, and her face was swollen like a pig's head.